Putin is a KGB operative by training. He will read Donald Trump in a heartbeat. And I tremble at the thought that the two of them could be alone in a room.
Congressman Jerry Conley there speaking ahead of Friday's closely watched meeting for which the White House has no specific agenda. Today, the New York Times reporting, quote, even the president's top aides do not know precisely what Mr. Trump will decide to say or do when he and Mr. Putin meet face-to-face. Let's bring in our guest, Jack Barsky, a former KGB spy during the Cold War. He cooperated with the FBI and is now an American citizen. And Josh Lederman, foreign affairs reporter for the AP. So, Jack, you think that we are ascribing to Vladimir Putin more jiu-jitsu skills than he deserves. Why is that?
This is all self-aggrandizement. I worked with a lot of KGB agents, and I was one of the better trained agents. We were not supermen, and we are not supermen. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard the statement that he will read Mr. Putin like an open book. Everybody does, don't they?
Well, so what do you think from Putin's standpoint, then? What do you think he's trying to? I mean, we've read that he wants to have the compounds that President Obama seized in the final days of his presidency as punishment for Russian meddling in the U.S. elections. What do you think Putin wants to get out of this bilateral meeting with the President of the United States?
I don't think it's about any specific goals. It's more or less about, when two dogs meet for the first time at a dog patch, they size each other up and who is going to be the top dog. And I pretty much guarantee you that Putin's advisors told him back at the Kremlin, look, this is going to be a great meeting because you're going to come out of this smelling like a rose. Because if anything, compared to our president, Mr. Putin is very slick. So he will play to the world audience, he will play to his home audience, and he will probably try to get sort of a psychological advantage over the other ego in the room.
Josh, do you think there's some White House strategy in putting out this whole there's no agenda for the meeting, which I find impossible to believe? President Trump will say whatever he wants to say. I mean, do you think they're lowering the bar basically underground so that whatever happens in the meeting, if he doesn't hug him and kiss him on both cheeks, we all say, yay, the president stood up to Vladimir Putin?
I think they're playing it safe because, let's face it, even if this weren't Putin, if it were any leader, Trump's aides wouldn't necessarily know ahead of time exactly what he's going to say. So he's unpredictable, and we sort of have that built into the cake now. But I think we have to look at, everyone here in Washington is obsessed with, what is going to happen if he gets played by Putin. But what does that actually look like? Under Obama, you had Putin slouching in his chair, looking, as Obama later said, like he was the bored kid in the classroom and kind of embarrassing the U.S. president that way. But in this case, Nicole, like the worst thing that could possibly happen as far as Trump is concerned politically would be for Putin to come out and give him a big bear hug and to look too cozy with the American leader. That would be incredibly damaging. So it's quite the opposite.
Let me stay with that. I mean, if they are left alone in a room together, as Congressman Conley said, it terrifies him, the thought of it. They might be the only two people in a room who don't accept what everyone agrees to as a cold, hard fact that Russia meddled in our election. Watch what leading Democrats and Republicans had to say about that being a settled fact. Take a look.
Russia will continue to develop capabilities to use against the United States, and we need to be ready to meet those threats.
How much of a threat to global security do you consider the Russian President Vladimir Putin?
I think he is the premier and most important threat, more so than ISIS.
Russia continues to engage in exploitation of the U.S. elections process.
We're talking about a foreign government that, using technical intrusion and lots of other methods, tried to shape the way we think, we vote, we act. That is a big deal.
I hope the American people recognize the severity of this threat and that we collectively counter it before it further erodes the fabric of our democracy.
I think we have to assume, for all the reasons that have been discussed here, that the Russians will be back.
They're coming after America, which I hope we all love equally.
So, Josh, I guess my question to you is, how does anyone on the White House staff watch that and contemplate anything other than what Jeremy Bash called a finger in the chest moment, where President Trump says to the Russian president, hey, I'm the best partner you're ever going to have in the Oval Office, but stay out of our democracy?
Certainly all of the political pressure coming from Congress and other areas of Washington is for Trump to directly raise this issue and be pretty aggressive about it. I don't think there are a lot of indications that if Trump does raise it, that it's going to be top of the agenda. In fact, the only thing we know they are definitely going to talk about is Syria. We found out just a few hours ago from Secretary Tillerson. So, you know, Trump seems to generally be immune to the pressures of what other people in Washington want him to say or focus on. That's certainly true on Twitter, and I imagine it might be the case with his meeting with Putin as well.
All right, we'll be watching together. Thank you for spending some time with us. To Jack and to Josh, coming up, the backdrop to...
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.